outside the 10. Hart tips it in and it's he spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Watching greatness on one end in LeBron. There's a dude with 35 in white getting it done defensively and then offense taking over the fight. Mama, there goes that man.
They have shared a brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021. Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world.
Hello everybody, I'm back, and welcome to the I Live Bitch edition of the Waterboy Experience. I am your host, the Waterboy himself, Davis McLemore, and I'd like to apologize for my last week's disappearance. But remember this, with a little bit of olive oil and butter, there's no toilet in hell that can keep me down. Now that the starting Waterboy is back, let's put Wes back on the bench for the time being because we have a lot to cover this week, the NFL preseason and all the tomfoolery around it, as well as whatever nondescript motorsports we have today. Here to join me is the man who lent me a helping hand, the one, the only, Jason Shaddix. Jason, how are you?
So you finally got out of the toilet, huh?
Yeah, it's tiny. I'm surprised I was able to fit into it in the first place, but
Yeah,
it's fitting into it that wasn't the problem. It's getting out.
Yeah, like I said last week, we tried nothing and are all out of ideas, honestly. I didn't want to deal with it, and it smelled like shit there. I don't know how many hours or days you were in there, but oh boy, it was a nasty piece of work, I'll tell you that much.
We were about to just rip the whole toilet off the floor.
That's not so hard. Little plasticky toilet you got.
That's true. So I'll let you take over for the time being, and then we'll talk about what you want to talk about, and then we'll talk about what I want to talk about. Does that sound good?
Sure enough. I mean, for once...
It is my show. I'm going to let you go first.
Yes, it is your show, so thank you for that. But most importantly, I don't have a race review. Ha, 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 ha.
This is bizarre. This is the first week that we're reviewing a week of NFL games.
Yes, we were supposed to start last week, but, that happened.
Right.
And Wes didn't watch the game, Raiders versus Jags, and I don't blame him. So we just talked some nondescript motorsport news, some news in general about cars, and just went along with the, chit-chat.
It was a rather dull episode, if I may say. I don't know. I haven't listened to it.
Well, I can tell you this much. Wes hates his voice. He hated listening to it. He's like, there's nothing wrong with the podcast itself. I just hate listening to myself talk. And I was like, brother, that's everybody. All right. You really got to be some narcissist to say, I like the sound of my voice when playing it back.
Well, from what I've been able to gather, you said that he did pretty good. So we'll hope to have the backup Waterboy
on standby.
Yeah.
For whenever we need him.
Exactly. So how do you want to do this? We have no direction. What are we doing?
Well, I have direction. I have notes. I always have a script with me. I always write down my stuff. I am always professional, unlike some other people that I will not name, but who are sitting to the right.
I just typed words into my phone, and I just infer what they said.
Which is why this is such a shit show.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's start out with one of the news that broke out during this weekend. If you're a baseball fan, you're going to want to listen to this. This past Friday, news broke in the world of MLB that San Diego's Padres shortstop Fernando Tatis Jr. has been suspended for 80 games after he tested positive for cholesterol, a type of anabolic steroid. Tatis claims that he had used medication to treat ringworm and that it had contained the banned substance. This error will see him sit out on the next 48 games of the remaining season, as well as any possible postseason games that the Padres might play. He is expected to return sometime in the 2023 season. What did you think about that?
How long, or do you know how many weeks are 80 games? Because I know the MLB does their schedules very differently.
Think about it like this. They have 48 games remaining of the regular season for the Padres. And then if the Padres play any postseason games, I'm thinking kind of like playoffs or the World Series or something like that, that counts as part of the suspension. But after that, it goes into the regular season next year.
Okay, so it's quite a long time.
Yeah, he's going to be back sometimes next year. The thing that kind of like makes me go, what the fuck is, he says it's medication to treat a ringworm. And
He has
didn't-
ringworms?
apparently, and he didn't fight the decision. He didn't appeal it. You think if you were innocent, you would be like, look, I didn't know it was, I didn't know it contained that. I was just using it for literally medication. Wouldn't you want to fight it?
I mean, yeah. But since he's not fighting it, good thing for him. He's just going to take the punishment. He's just like, yeah, I did it. But, it's weird. Ringworms. How did he get that? You still want to play games with ringworms?
I don't know. It's a weird thing. I think he was trying to use the steroid, got caught. He's not the only one who's been caught for using that specific type of drug. I think in 2016, there was a player who got caught. And here's the one thing I like about the MLB. They're very strict on when a player does anything wrong, unlike the NFL, Deshaun Watson. But the last player got 80 game suspension, so he's getting 80 game suspension, and that's a long time.
That's fair.
Yeah, but the thing is, he wasn't playing for the Padres at the time. He was actually in a minor league assignment, they call it, because he broke his wrist in December after he crashed his motorcycle. And then in March, he had the operation to get it fixed. So he wasn't playing for them. I think he was just trying to heal it up and all that. So, but anyway, with that is the end of our regular sports. And now we will go to the nondescript motorsport news, in which we will be talking about Formula E. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to do any Formula 1, but Formula E, it was the season ender this week. So I just I need to cover it. And they were actually fighting for a world championship. So let's check this out. This Sunday was the season ender of Formula E, and I have to say it was quite a race. The championship was on the line as Mercedes driver Stoffel Van Dorn led the championship by 21 points.
What a fun name, Stoffel Van Dorn. I like that.
It's European names. They're different.
Hey, I like it as long as it's not a Lewis Hamilton driving it.
Anyway, 21 points against New Zealander Mitch Evans. In order to beat him, Van Dorn needed to finish ahead of Evans. Fortunately for him, Evans qualified 13th and could only muster a P7 finish. Van Dorn finished third, but was pushed up to second after Jake Dennis was handed a 5-second penalty for causing a collision with Antonio Felix de la Costa, and Eduardo Mortera was the race winner. Van Dorn has not only won his first championship, but also the second consecutive Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship for Mercedes EQ. An interesting note is that after only 3 seasons in Formula E, Mercedes is leaving at the end of this season, and the team will change hands to McLaren, who have already stated that they intend to only keep one of the drivers. This could leave Nick de Vries without a drive, but while Van Dorn just won the championship, the previous year, de Vries took the championship himself.
So Van Dorn looks like a little bit of an older guy. Am I correct?
Yes. So the thing about Formula E is, it was created to capitalize on the movement of, wanting greener cars, greener, better for the environment and stuff like that. So about 9 years ago, they created the Formula E series, and a lot of drivers who were good, but not good enough for Formula One or didn't have the machinery, like Van Dorn used to be in McLaren. And back then, McLaren was absolutely shit because their engines were just some of the worst imaginable. So a lot of guys go to Formula E who have been in Formula One. We saw, I think, what's his name? Can't remember his name now. Felipe Massa. There we go. Felipe Massa. He went from Formula One to Formula E. He raced a few times. Nelson Piquet Jr. went into Formula E. So there's a lot of names that have gone through Formula E that have been in Formula One, or there's a lot of names that have been in Formula 2 and go to Formula E because they can't get a seat in Formula 1. Like Nick de Vries in 2019, he was the Formula 2 world champion. He couldn't get a seat with any team, and he was a Mercedes driver. He's part of the Mercedes Driver Academy or something like that, and he is actually signed to be the reserve driver for Mercedes. And we saw him this year drive one of the Mercedes. I think it was at the French Grand Prix, and he's a good driver. A lot of people were touting him to be really good, but now they're kind of forgetting about him, and they're focusing on Oscar Piastri, who, if he didn't get a seat in Formula One this year, he might have gone into Formula E.
So let me ask you this. We know that McLaren in Formula One, rumor around the mill is they want to ditch Daniel Ricciardo, right?
Yes.
What are the odds we see him in Formula E if McLaren takes over that?
Well, that's where you kind of shot yourself in the foot for not listening to last week's podcast. Is because Mercedes, for God's sake, McLaren is actually trying to buy him out of his contract, which could mean that they'll be paying him $23 million to not race. Or like if he's racing for, say, Alpine, he goes to Alpine, which is unlikely. But in the case that he does, and he's racing for them, he is not only going to get paid by Alpine, but he's also going to get paid by McLaren.
So 2 teams will be paying him at the same time.
Yes. It came out that they were trying to, come out to a clause and all that. And they actually wanted him to move into Formula E because they were opening, the Mercedes, the McLaren team. But he said, no, I want to stay in Formula One.
So it's not a possibility we'd see him in Formula E. Do you think that would be a good move for him, though?
The thing is,
you talk about an F1 driver that can't really cut it in F1.
Well, the thing is, Formula E is about to start a new generation. I think it's Gen 3, I believe. So these cars are different. It's kind of like the reset for 2022 was for Formula One, and it's going to be the same for Formula E. I mean, the batteries are going to stay relatively the same. So, he might come up with the same issue that he can't get used to the car.
So if McLaren decides to bring in new drivers, who do you think is in that candidacy?
Well, I forgot his name was Alex, from IndyCar racing, the current world champion.
Yeah.
There's a chance he might actually come in to race in Formula E, or he might stay at IndyCar because they have their own team, McLaren has. So, he's a high contender if he doesn't stay in IndyCar racing. Oscar Piastri is definitely going to be the one to stay in Formula One. That's who they want. It's going to take some time until we see what happens.
Well, I saw pictures of that Gen 3 Formula E. These cars look ridiculous. I'm not saying like ridiculous in a bad way, but these cars, they look like something you'd see off a speed racer. You know what I mean? Like they're really futuristic and like they have that light on the back. It looks like an
afterburner.
An afterburner, yeah. The sounds the cars just make is just a little bit. It's like, those big, beefy, bulky guys that have high-pitched, squealy voices. It's like that.
Essentially, it's like this really powerful car that has really bad bands on it. And so every time it's squeaking the entire time.
So just to make a little bit more conversation about Formula E, because I think it's interesting. The aerodynamics of the car, the shape, like I was talking about, could you apply those concepts to a Formula One car and have success in Formula One, or vice versa?
Okay, so to begin with, I'm not really as versed in aerodynamics in Formula E as I am in Formula One. But
well, then forget about it. Just
no. But I'll start with the latter. You really can't do the shape of Formula One cars to Formula E cars because the way that Formula One cars are designed, they have to be designed in a way where the engines, which are up to specification, like there have to be a certain size, a certain width, a certain length, and all that. That's why like the chassis of the cars are the way they are, so they can support that kind of engine. And in Formula E, they do have a complex electronic system with a electric battery, but if you notice, the backside of them aren't as big as the Formula One cars. And one thing about Formula E cars is they're made in a way to create closer racing. So they have less downforce, they have, less movable area. And like, if I believe I'm right, they're spec series chassis, meaning that all the chassis are the same, which you can't do in Formula One because that's what makes Formula One what it is. You have to have teams develop their own chassis. And again, it might not be possible with the way the Formula One engines are and the chassis of the Formula E cars, the way they're designed.
So which one, in a race situation, which one is a little bit more reliable, Formula One car or Formula E car?
Formula One cars.
Can't beat good old gasoline and...
Well, I mean, you get faults in any car. There's no perfect car. At some point, a car is going to break down. That's just the way of life. But
it's just cars.
Yes, but from what I've seen, Formula One cars, they might seem a little bit less reliable than Formula E cars, but at the same time, you have to understand that Formula One cars are driven at faster pace. They generate more downforce. They're experiencing more push by gravity. than Formula E cars. So, there's wear and tear that's different just because of how the cars are shaped and all that, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, it does. And I mean, I think, they think, electric car, there's not as much that could go wrong with it. That might not always be true. There might be a lot of things that could go wrong with a Formula E car that you don't even think about with like a regular car.
But an interesting thing, though, is Mercedes is leaving this year. Like I said, they're leaving Formula E. They're not the first manufacturer to leave. Renault left, which was honestly replaced by Nissan, which they're separate companies, but they have a partnership. So they're kind of 1 and 2. But Audi left, and I can't remember what the other team was. I think it might have been BMW, if they were in there. Anyway, I know 3 big manufacturers left, and one of the things they were citing was essentially we learned all we could about the Formula E batteries, because all this technology, all those manufacturers, not only is Formula E so less expensive than Formula One. I think Jaguar a few years ago said that it costs 1/10 of what it costs to run a Formula One team, and they've actually
Really?
Yes, and they've actually run a Formula One team in the early 2000s, I believe, and they didn't do so well. So I forgot what I was saying.
You called me the unprofessional one.
Yeah, no, well, I'm watching Formula E clips that we have on our television.
Is the TV distracting you? I'm sorry.
So the manufacturer cited the batteries, okay? And they learned everything because, like I said, all these teams essentially are manufactured teams, basically. And they're taking everything they learned about Formula E and the batteries and all that, and they're taking it into their cars. But the thing is, they've gotten to the point, a lot of them, that we've learned all we can, and because it's a limited kind of like spec series, they can't just go, okay, design whatever battery engine you want to run your car. They don't do that because the cost would be extremely high, which is why in Formula One, it's extremely expensive to run a team because you essentially have to create your own engine or buy it, design everything, and it gets to be very expensive. Like I said, last week I said that Toyota in around 2006, 2007, they spent over $1 billion in developing a car that would be extremely fast and all that. Didn't win a single race. They lost $1 billion in Formula One in 2006 before the recession, and they had to leave Formula One because of the recession. So a lot of teams are kind of getting frustrated with that, and a lot of manufacturers are leaving. And I know a few of them are focusing on different electric car series. I know there's this off-road rally one. Can't remember the name of it, but it looks really cool. And apparently some of the teams are going there because they get a little bit more mobility, move room in order to develop new batteries. And like I said, all this technology goes back into those road cars.
It's essentially a glorified way for them to do research.
Yes. I mean, this is the best way to do research because you're pushing the cars to the limit.
Exactly. Just to put it into perspective, I looked up how much each car would cost. A Formula E car, the third generation of Formula E cars are going to cost right around $350,000. And then a 2022 Formula One car says it costs about $20 million. Are those numbers kind of correct?
Definitely. I think it might cost a little bit more.
Right.
For a Formula One car.
Right, depending on which car.
Yeah, so think about it. That's $20 million to just build the car because they use a lot of carbon fiber and all that. And then you have to take into consideration development of the engines for 2026, development for the aerodynamics of the car, the suspension system, running the entire operation at your headquarters. There's so much money that is spent in Formula One. That's why I call it the epitome of motorsport because they're pushing automotive industry. Well, they're pushing cars to the absolute limit.
The average rear wing, just the rear wing alone costs $85,000.
Yeah.
That's insane.
No.
For Formula One.
No, this is more insane. No, the steering wheels that the drivers have, those steering wheels can cost from anywhere from like $150,000 to $250,000 per the wheel. That's why, like, remember when Hamilton and Nico crashed, you saw him throw the wheel? That's $100,000 he just threw, like literally threw away because he got mad and threw the wheel away. So, like I said, Formula One is one of the most, probably the most expensive sport.
Definitely the most expensive motorsport.
By a long shot. But anyway, that was our thing with Formula E. Now we're going to talk about the American sport, our version of Formula One and Formula E.
America's favorite. Wait. Oh, we're going to talk about NASCAR?
Yeah.
Okay. America's third, fourth, fifth favorite pastime.
Definitely. Anyway, last week, Kevin Harvick broke his 65 winless streak and won on August 7th at Michigan International Speedway. And he didn't have to wait long before his next victory, as he took the win this past weekend at the Richmond Raceway. And it wasn't an easy win. In the final 4 laps, he had to fight Christopher Bell, who was on tires 12 laps younger than his. Yet the 46-year-old Harvick showed Bell a few tricks that he learned in his long career in the sport and won by 0.441 of a second. Next week, NASCAR will be at Watkins Glen, and I plan to actually sit down and watch the full race just to see one of my favorite drivers of all time, Kimi Räikkönen, race for Trackhouse.
It'll be so good to see Kimi driving again.
Kimi.
I do an interview with him, ask him what it's like, and he'll just go, blah.
No, it's blah.
Blah. Yeah.
It was racing. But anyway, that's pretty much all the motorsport news. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about NFL before we get into the NFL. I know I'm crashing in on your party, but I know you're not going to talk about them, so I'm going to talk about them. The Detroit Lions.
I actually was going to talk about them, but I'll let you take over for that one game.
All right, I'm not the most savvy. Hey, look, it's Total Wolf. No, Mikey, no, it's so not fair. Anyway, my boys in blue, the Detroit Lions, lost the first preseason game 27-23 to the Atlanta Falcons. But we showed a lot of promise. Sure, our defense needs some work, but most of our fan base can agree on that Jared Goff has done quite a lot to make this team play better, even though no team is running on all cylinders during preseason. And if this is anything to go by, then we're in for an exciting season. That's all I had to say, because, we did have some moments where I'm like, oh, why did we do that? But, our players look good. They look better than last year, and I thought we were doing better last year. So, here's to a season in NFL. Hopefully, I have faith that we'll come back from the back of the, I'm going to say it the way I know it, in the back of the grid to the midfield in NFL. Maybe we're not going to be at the back. Maybe we're just going to be at the middle.
As long as you see an improvement. I definitely saw an improvement in the Lions. Aiden Hutchinson really shined. Every single passing play, he was right there in either Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder. He was right there in their face. And, he got a sack. It was good for him. But that pass rush looks dangerous for the Lions. Now, the one bad thing I will say was the run defense there's a lot of holes. But there's plenty of time to fix up those holes. And the Atlanta Falcons themselves actually didn't look too bad. Desmond Ridder looked pretty good. So did Marcus Mariota. I'm glad to see him in a place where he can shine. I'm hoping to actually see Marcus be the week 1 starter. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty good game. And don't get your hopes down for them losing that game, because we'll see how things come out during the season. So I'm going to get into the other games. Whew, I tell you, it's not. But it sure is fun watching my Las Vegas Raiders win back-to-back preseason games. Doesn't mean much, but they are actually really shining. I'm going to talk about the Hall of Fame game first, the Raiders versus the Jaguars. The run game looked pretty strong with Josh Jacobs complemented with Amir Abdullah and Zamir White. Now, Zamir White led the team in rushing yards and attempts. He was 11 for 54. That's 11 attempts for 54 yards and averaged about 4.7 yards per carry. I'll mention later as well, our run game looks just as impressive as our passing game. They did the same thing against the Vikings. It looks solid, and we kind of put that identity on ourselves that we're going to have the most explosive passing offense in the league. But, Josh Jacobs is playing for his spot right now, and this could be the season where we find out if he is our long-term running back or if we need to let him go, because when he battles injuries, he battles them pretty tough, and they usually linger with him throughout the whole season. But if he can stay healthy, he's one of the best backs in the league. But Amir Abdullah and Zamir White are both coming up, and they're guys you need to watch your back for. Defense has a few holes. Against the Vikings, we had several holes in the offensive line. I'm not too worried about that because I feel like once we get everything figured out with the O-line, it'll be a lot smoother and our pass protection will be much better. The Jaguars fought pretty well. Their defense looked like we could go back to calling them Sacksonville as they racked up 5 sacks on the day. This is the problems with the offensive line I was talking about. The number 1 overall pick, Trayvon Walker, racked up a sack, and 2 others that came from the former Raider, Arden Key, who looked great in this game. Jaguar fans have reason to be optimistic, of course. The hiring of Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence entering his 2nd year. Put that offense with this defense, pairing them together, and things are looking up. But in the end, it was Jaguars 11, Raiders 27, and I can't be mad about this. So, good game, boys.
So, Jaguars actually did better than you expected.
They did. I think they did better than pretty much everybody expected.
So, does that mean that Tony Khan isn't...
Tony Khan has nothing to do with this. They put Doug Peterson in charge and just let him run, which, is the best thing to do. He's won a Super Bowl. He beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. So I think Doug Peterson as the head coach is going to make some drastic changes for this team, especially coming in with a young quarterback and a pretty darn good defense.
I'll say one thing that defeats that entire argument. Daddy said sell.
Nah. Buccaneers versus the Dolphins. This was a good, close game throughout. Both teams looked promising.
How did Brady look? Did he look like he had a fire in his eye?
Brady didn't play, which was smart. See, Derek Carr didn't play in the Raiders game, which I was perfectly fine with.
Which one?
Both of them. He didn't play in either one. Both teams looked very promising. However, Miami's pass defense was not all that impressive. Now, they're missing Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, both out due to injury. I'm not sure how long they'll be out, but it allowed for Buccaneers quarterbacks Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask to look like spawns of Tom Brady. Nevertheless, this game came down to the wire with the Buccaneers kicker Jose Borgales attempting a 49-yard game-winning field goal, which hit the upright, allowing Miami to walk away with a 26-24 W. Now, for America's team versus Walmart, the Cowboys versus the Broncos, The Broncos dominated the Cowgirls in their joint practice, much like they did here in this game. Quarterback Josh Johnson impressed me, and so did this receiving core. Now, we know the week 1 starters will consist of Russell Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, and I know they signed some other guys, but their name escapes me at the moment. And the Cowboys just didn't have a good night. Jerry Jones is like Vince McMahon, and I truly believe he's holding that team back. The talent is there, but it feels like there's not much of a direction in this organization. And I'll get to another team that is suffering kind of the same fate, the New York Giants. Not really an identity. No, the talent's there. There's just no direction and not a real clear plan on how to use these guys. The Broncos bucked off the Cowboys 17-7, and that was basically it. Seahawks versus the Steelers. The Seahawks were promising throughout the game, but because of a late fumble, they found themselves on the opposite side of the river. Steelers look great as well. I'm curious how well these two teams can improve after both having somewhat rocky years last year. Now, I still don't see why Seattle wants to go with Drew Lock as their quarterback going forward. He wasn't bad, but he just doesn't have that vision or awareness to make it as a week-to-week starter in the NFL. He didn't see Steelers linebacker Mark Robinson coming off the edge towards the end of the game, and he forced Lock to fumble, which resulted in a Tyler Barnes touchdown, and that sealed the game in a 32-25 win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Super Bowl champions, the Rams, took on their roommates, the Chargers. Rams wide receiver Lance McCutcheon, I think we'll be calling him McClutchin throughout the season if he can make the 52-man roster.
We might just call him the Burn Clutch.
We might. But he was absolutely unstoppable against the Chargers. He finished the game with 5 receptions on 6 targets for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. They would be insane to not have this guy make the final roster. The Chargers fought hard and put in a good show, but in the end, it was a 29-22 Rams victory. The Saints versus the Texans. The Houston Texans took down the New Orleans Saints in an unusually thrilling preseason game, winning 17-13 on the back of a game-winning touchdown that came within 25 seconds left Houston's defensive line lived in the backfield with 5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. I don't want to talk about this next game, but I've got to. So give me just a second to get my thoughts about me.
He was rubbing his face, so you know it's about to get good.
The Chiefs versus the Bears. I'll give you my first question. Why is Patrick Mahomes playing in the first week of the preseason?
Because he needs to practice.
That he does. But the whole training camp, they have been showing these ridiculous videos of him doing these stupid stunts that he would never use in an actual game. Like throwing a ball.
Hey, man, it's for the TikTok.
Oh, who cares? Like throwing a ball behind his back through the goalpost. Oh, big deal. Like you're the only one that can do that. Or he'll throw a ball underhanded, 10 yards down the field. So what? The whole training camp was just a masturbatory celebration of Patrick Mahomes. That's all it was. And they didn't work. I guarantee you, they didn't work on getting better. They didn't sign anybody big to compete with these other AFC West teams like the Raiders or the Chiefs.
Now that's
or the
where
Broncos.
you're wrong, Davis. That's where you're wrong. They signed Juju.
Do not say Juju Smith-Schuster. He is not a wide receiver one.
But don't you see? He's the big deal. He's the next big thing.
I can't tell if you're just trolling me right now or not. I hope you are.
Yeah, of course I am. I mean, no, I'm serious. He's a big deal to all 13-year-old boys who haven't gotten laid.
Exactly. But for those kind of people that like that kind of thing, those are the kind of thing that those people like. So
say that 5 times fast.
I'd rather not. So basically, the Chiefs really didn't do anything but do tricks on the practice field. This game, if it's any indication, I know it's the preseason, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself. If I wanted to use this as an indication of how well the Chiefs are going to do in the AFC West this year, it's not looking great comparatively. I guess I have to say something positive about them. Their run defense and the pass rush looked pretty good. That's all I'll say. The Bears had spurts in the first half where they were sometimes very, very good, sometimes very, very bad. But coming out of the halftime, they grabbed a great interception, and it was all uphill from there. Before the half, the Chiefs were leading 14-0, and the Bears scored 19 unanswered points and walked away with a 14-19 win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Can't say I wasn't happy to see that. Now, I know it's preseason. It doesn't really mean anything, and, okay.
If that was the case, then why do they have preseason games? Hell, why do people watch this?
Just because. The preseason games have started really, really, really dropping down in importance and for the amount of people who care because, and a lot of people blame Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, because he was actually one of the first teams a few years ago, or one of the first coaches a few years ago to start benching their starters throughout the entire preseason. And most teams do that, but there are some teams that just, they want to get their guys some snaps and they want to risk injuring guys and, they'll pay the price for it. And the Jets actually suffered from that plague because they beat the Eagles 24-21, but it's a dark, dark day because Zach Wilson, our favorite quarterback, is injured.
Yes, he broke his penis bone.
Yes, but Zach Wilson went down with some sort of a knee injury. I'm looking up the details right now on what it was.
So they claim. I'm telling you, it's a sex injury. He was fucking one of his mom's best friends, and he got injured.
They're still okay. So what it says here is they're still waiting the results of the injury to see the extent, to see if he'll be available week 1. But this is why you don't play your starters in the preseason, because situations like this. Because he gets hurt, he's out for the rest of the season, you're probably not going to win a game unless you can find the second coming of Tom Brady or Johnny Unitas or whoever.
Okay, I got something to say to that, and I think that's where you're wrong. It's the New York Jets. They're never going to get any better. I don't care.
Maybe even with Zach Wilson. I don't know.
No, look, even with Zach Wilson, let's be honest, that's a team that if you get drafted there, you're not going to make it anywhere. You're just waiting for another team to see any potential in you and hiring you. And that's the only way you can get from the bottom to the top, okay?
Well,
Don't
and
believe me?
the Jets-
Matthew Stafford, he was playing with the Lions for 10 years, absolutely shit in that team, goes to the Rams, wins the Super Bowl. Okay? The Jets are like the Lions. It doesn't fucking matter if you get hurt or not. You're not going to make any difference to that team whatsoever.
Jets have made several big moves and several big pickups. It's just a matter of the system. Is the system good enough to support that talent?
And what has the last 20 years told us?
They can't.
Point exactly.
I will say the Jets' run defense looks pretty solid. That's about all I got to say about that. I didn't review all the games. There's one more game that I do want to talk about. We should have like a bell or a soundboard or something when this becomes the Deshaun Watson Power Hour.
Well, our musician is in New Orleans working on a movie, so we can't use him. We can't say, "Hey, make this." He's like, "No, I'm too busy." But I know where
That's
you're
what I'm
going
saying.
for
We
this.
need a soundboard or something. But
Did you post this on the Waterboy podcast at the Waterboy Pod?
post what?
The chant,
The chant?
Deshaun.
Oh no, I didn't.
Trust me, we're gonna post it with this week's episode announcement.
So the Browns took on the Jaguars in the preseason game, and they were in Jacksonville. And the first drive, they put out Deshaun Watson. Again, why are you playing your starters in the preseason? But these are probably the only 4 games he will ever play as a Cleveland Brown. They're the only 4 games he should, in my opinion. But as soon as he steps out on the field, all of the fans, all of the Jacksonville Jaguar fans just start chanting, "You sick fuck, you sick fuck." And it was bad. It got into his head, and they actually turned the ball over in that first drive. So he was 1 for 5 for 7 yards in that one drive. I'll just mention that at the top. But the Browns ended up winning 24-13. They didn't play Deshaun again after that drive, after the reaction from the Jacksonville Jaguar fans. There's 2 different sides to this argument. It was not even an argument. There's 2 different parts of this and ways that I look at it. One, Jacksonville, that's a little bit far. That's a little bit unprofessional. It is football, and I mean, it's just a game. But at the same time, good going, guys. You're saying exactly what we all thought.
If I can take a moment to read an article by ESPN by Jake Trotter, the headline, Cleveland Browns Deshaun Watson in an interview apologizes to all of the women that I have impacted in this situation. Jacksonville, Florida. Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson for the first time publicly apologized to the women who have accused him of sexual misconduct during message sessions in an interview on Friday. Quote, "I want to say that I'm truly sorry to all the women that I have impacted in this situation," Watson said during an in-house interview on the Browns pregame show that aired on Cleveland News 5. The interview took place before Friday night's preseason opener against Jacksonville Jaguars, which Watson started. Prior to Friday, Watson had said in his only 2 interviews with reporters since joining the Browns from the Houston Texans that he had, quote, "no regrets," end quote, regarding any of his actions during the massage sessions. In a second interview during Cleveland's minicamp in June, Watson reiterated that he had no regrets about his actions, though admitted he regretted the impacts the allegations had on the people around him. He indicated differently on Friday, quote, "The decision that I made in my life that put me in this position, I would definitely like to have back," end quote, he said on a Browns pregame show. "But I want to continue to move forward and grow and learn and show that I am a true person of character, and I am going to keep pushing forward." Watson and the Browns are waiting to hear whether he will be suspended longer than the 6-game ban he was handed by independent arbitrator Sue L. Robinson last week for violating the league's personal conduct policy. The NFL, seeking a tougher punishment, has appealed Robinson's ruling, which will be heard by Peter C. Harvey, a former New Jersey Attorney General appointed by Commissioner Roger Goodell. Harvey has no specific deadline to rule on the appeal, though he must work in an expedited basis per the collective bargaining agreement. In her 16-page report, which concluded Watson violated the personal conduct policy with egregious and predatory behavior, Robinson noted that an aggressive factor in her decision to suspend Watson for 6 games was his, quote, "lack of express remorse." So,
Boom!
So do you think his lack of express remorse is why he is going on in an interview and saying that I am sorry that what I have done has impacted all of your lives. Do you think that's why he's saying it?
I'm sorry I splooged on your face, ma'am. I really hope... I don't know. I think at this point, he's just trying to scrape up whatever sympathy he can get for himself.
The fact that the Cleveland Browns are still playing him is what pisses me off, because he should not be playing. He shouldn't be in the NFL, and this shouldn't be such an issue. It's straightforward. You have 80 people, 50 who sued you, who you had to settle with, 30 that the Texans had to settle with. You're fucked. Why are you still here?
You've got a whole team still cleaning up the mess that you made when you were there. And people aren't talking about that. How the Houston Texans are still trying to make amends with all the damage he did over there. But, it's ridiculous. And the NFL originally said they weren't going to appeal. And then the judge released, well, we're only going to suspend him for about, what did she say? Either 4 weeks or 6 weeks?
6 game suspension.
6 game suspension.
Which, if I might have to add, you have to publicly apologize to Roger Goodell. I already did it last week because we thought that he would
I'm not publicly apologizing to Roger Goodell. I'm not apologizing to anybody. He's just using his common sense for once. And you know what? Okay, that's good for him. It doesn't deserve an apology. It just deserves okay, you did something good. Good for you. But the decision to appeal it actually made the NFLPA mad. The NFLPA Players Union actually thinks that he shouldn't be suspended at all. And that's the crazy thing. They think, yeah, he should just be able to suit up week 1 and go play.
Well, the union can kiss my ass for all I care.
And, they were talking and they were like, maybe we should get players to hold out until the NFL drops the appeal and all that stuff. But the thing is, most NFL players are like, we don't want this guy playing with us. He's a fucking creep. And I don't understand why they're painting themselves out to be bad guys here, because you're the players union. You're supposed to be behind the players. The players don't even want this guy here. So why do you want him here?
Money, 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 money.
Yeah, in the words of Eugene Krabs. But I don't know. And the NFLPA is going to sue the NFL if they try to push for a year, and then it's going to be a whole mess that shouldn't even happen.
Welcome to the real world where shit never goes the way it should go.
It doesn't go the way it should in the NFL. He shouldn't even get a year. He should get 2, 3 life in prison or something like that.
Definitely. But is that all the NFL games, reviews, and news that you have?
Yes, I didn't get all of the NFL games.
Because there's too many of them, people.
There was just way too many. I only got the ones that I watched. Only the ones that I had time to watch full length, which you can, if you want to, you can check them out on YouTube. Most of them are available for the full game on YouTube. Do not get NFL Plus.
Yeah, I could have told you that myself.
Because I bought NFL Plus the day it came out. And
Big
now
mistake.
I try to go into the app and it tells me, well, you're not subscribed to NFL Plus. I said, I paid $10 for it. I should be able to get into it. I got the top tier membership so I could listen to the games. I could watch coaches film. I could study them and give you guys the best studying job you've ever seen since Deshaun Watson was studying his massage therapists. And it tells me I'm not subscribed. So then I try to subscribe again. Well, you're already subscribed. And I go, what the fuck you mean? So then I go back out of it. I close it. I delete the app, reinstall it, log back in. And then I try to watch some good Raiders and Vikings highlights. Nope, you're not subscribed. Well, maybe I should try to subscribe again. Well, you're already subscribed. So I don't know what's going on with NFL Plus. I don't know if anybody else is having the problems that I'm having with it, but it is new. It's probably just very buggy, and maybe the only way to access it is through the NFL app. So I don't know. But it's a good concept because I've been wanting something like this, because I hate having to look up some back alley website to try to watch, or even just to try to listen to the Raider games. But I don't know, maybe this year I'll just stick with Red Zone, NFL Red Zone, so I can basically watch all the games at once. So I don't know. We'll see.
Meanwhile, Formula One Pro TV has been working wonders and is a great tool for me.
Yeah.
Only costs you $9.99. You get
Spends $20 million on a fucking car.
people who actually have money.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a great tool for me to review races and review previous races. And I get everything. I get telemetry. I get, radio messages, unfiltered radio messages. And yeah, F1 Pro TV is really great. God, they've never stolen $10 from me. And I am so glad for that. So thank you, Formula One.
Thank you, Formula One, for great service. Better service than the NFL. Better legal system than the NFL, too.
But anyway, I think we've rambled on long enough. I think your blood pressure is through the roof right now. So why don't you sign us off, white boy?
Well, you won't hear from me next week. I'll get stuck in another toilet. This show's stuck in the toilet. But be sure to follow us on Instagram at the Waterboy Pod and follow us on Twitter at the Waterboy EXP. Share us with your friends. Listen to us wherever you are, in the shower, in the bathroom, in the car, whatever you're doing. It's never a bad time to listen to us.
Hell, you can listen to us while you're pleasuring yourself.
I also want to make an announcement. Coming soon, the Waterboy Experience YouTube channel. It's already up. We just have yet to upload videos to it and all that stuff. But it is coming soon. It's in the works. And we just have to figure out the technology and the process that we're going to be taking to it. But we're going to post clips. We might even post the full episodes on there. So if you want to listen to more Waterboy Experience, you might even get exclusive reviews.
No, you're not.
Watch along?
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
But you can edit them. I'm not editing them.
Okay, I'll edit it. So yeah, the Waterboy Experience YouTube channel. The official. Coming soon.
Great. More production work for me.
Exactly. I'm going to put you to work, boy.
I've been working 2 weeks straight without a break.
What the hell do I pay you for?
You don't pay me nothing.
Thank you for listening to this week's video, this week's episode of the Waterboy Experience. We hope you have a fantastic day, and peace.
Second and goal just outside the 10. Hart tips it in, and it's Ward. He spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Watching greatness on one end in LeBron.